On this past weekend, as we were chronicling all these incidents at the Trump campaign, sure enough, there was another one on Saturday. John Kasich, Marco Rubio telling me, you know, they're kind of hedging now as to whether they would support Mr. Trump if he ended up being the nominee. Former Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee isn't having any of it. Governor, you don't think that this should be an issue here? Do I have the gist of that right?
Well, it shouldn't be, because everybody on that stage pledged that they would support the nominee, even if it was Donald Trump. They may not like it, they may not agree with it, but they said they would do it. 2 days later, if they say, well, I may not, then now it's their credibility, not Donald Trump's, that's on the line.
But you would have people who would disturb an event, not a lot, and you'd contain it, and all your people contain it. They argue, some of Donald Trump's critics argue, that he kind of spices it up and instigates it. You say what?
I think that's very unfair. I mean, to say that Donald Trump is trying to incite violence, that's a criminal accusation, if you think about it, Neil, because it's a criminal act to incite violence. So if you're accusing Donald Trump of trying to encourage violence, you've accused him of a criminal act. And I don't think that's true, and I don't think if they thought about what they're saying, they would agree with it. The fact is, it's the classic, let's blame the victim for what happened to him. Look, this is about left-wing thugs, that's what it is, who want to stop freedom of speech for someone they don't agree with. And the classic understanding in America is that the best antidote to free speech you don't like is free speech that you initiate. If you don't like what somebody's saying at a podium in front of a crowd, get yourself a podium, get yourself a crowd and say something different. But don't shut down the voice that you just don't happen to like or agree with. That's the dangerous thing in America, is shutting down the voices of people you disagree with. And there was one that I saw on Fox the other night. They actually said, well, I believe in free speech, I don't believe in hate speech. And I thought, who died and left you in charge to determine what's hate speech and what isn't? This is really the insanity of the radical left. These are not people who have thought through their positions. They operate with emotion, but with their brains turned off.
Two things, Governor. First, were you actually watching MSNBC but too tired to realize it? And then secondly,
hardly.
This is actually a serious question, if you can work with me. You're very smooth at dealing with crowds, and you've had your unruly protesters and all. How did you handle that kind of thing, and how would you handle if you were Donald Trump? There were many who say you're quite right that this isn't his instigating, if you accept that, but that as someone who is on the brink of the nomination, or could be, he's got to change his behavior, pivot, if you will, start acting more presidential and engaging the protesters, or citing them or calling them out isn't the way to do it. What do you say?
Well, one of the things I've enjoyed doing when I get, somebody trying to heckle me or protest me at a college campus or an event, I've had Code Pink and other groups like that. My first thing to do is to say, I just wanted to thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for yelling at me, which gets everybody's attention, including the protester. And then with their mouths open, I say, the reason I said thank you is because you remind me of what I love about America. You can come to my rally, you can scream at me, you can stand up and make a fool of yourself, and guess what? We're not going to shoot you, and you're not going to spend the night in jail. Now, if you don't make your point and move on, you might spend the night in jail, but not because you lack the ability to have free speech. It's because at that point, you're trying to take over someone else's event, and that's theft, and that's why you would be put away. Does everyone agree? And then the claps would start from the crowd, and it would be over. But look, everybody handles this stuff differently. But to blame Donald Trump for what happened in Chicago, I find that offensive, not just for Donald Trump. I find it offensive to me as an American who believes that the First Amendment gives people the right to say things that are outrageous. My gosh, Bernie Sanders says outrageous stuff every day. I don't think that the way to silence Bernie Sanders is to go and tackle him at his podium or to drown him out.
Well, they
it's
have
just
done
to
that.
ignore
They
him
have
and
done
not
that to
vote for
Bernie
him.
Sanders. Black Lives Matter stormed his podium. But you raised some very good points.
And let me ask you this. When that happened, did they blame Bernie Sanders for it? They did not.
Good point.
Why are they blaming Donald Trump? It's a very different set of rules that are being applied to Republicans than get applied to Democrats and to liberals.
I think that's a fair point. If you're going to make a big deal of this stuff, then make a big deal of it with everybody, because it has happened, to your point,
Absolutely.
with everybody. Governor, always good seeing you. Thank you very, very much.